I'd like to call this meeting of the Silver City Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner Jones.
Present.
Commissioner Clements.
Here.
Commissioner Coast.
Present.
Commissioner Lundy.
I'm here.
Commissioner Peralt.
Here.
Commissioner Seibel.
We hope you will still put in the pants, but we're not going to wait for him. We have a long meeting ahead. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I move that we move request zone change 11-05 for David Horcasitas to the first item on our agenda tonight.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the agenda change, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes. Okay, have you all had a chance to take a look at our minutes from the last meeting of October 4th, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, are there any changes or additions to the minutes? Could I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I'm so moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes for October 4th, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Next on the agenda is a public hearing entitled ZC 11-05. This is a request for a map amendment zone change from commercial to mixed-use district. The address is 1113 Bennett Street, Silver City, Grant County, New Mexico. And the applicant is David Horcasitas, the owner, and I believe Mr. Horcasitas is represented by his real estate agent, Judy Ward. Is that correct? Very good. This commission will serve as the hearing board, and I, as chairperson, will be the presiding officer. This case involves an application for a zoning change, and we need to begin first by asking the commissioners if there's been any ex parte communication on this matter.
No.
If not, then could we proceed with the swearing in? Any person wishing to testify in this matter must now come forward and be sworn in. It's not necessary for you to speak if you are sworn in, but you will not be allowed to testify in this case if you do not have yourself sworn in at this time. Luann, are you the staff person who's going to be sworn in?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to be the staff person who is sworn in?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right. Please state after me. I state your full name.
I, Lorraine Mitchell.
I, Judy Ward, do solemnly swear that the testimony I am about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. On penalty of perjury.
Madam Chairman, do you want me to start from here, or can I still sit at my chair?
You can certainly still sit at your chair.
Okay.
That will be fine. This is a zoning change, and Planning and Zoning Commission will be recommending this decision to the council, and it must meet at least one of 7 findings. Could the staff please make their report?
Okay, this is Project ZC 1105, a request for a map amendment zone change from commercial to mixed-use district. Location is 1113 Bennett Street, Silver City, Grant County, New Mexico. The applicant is David Horcasitas, owner. Tonight he is being represented by Judy Ward. The applicant is the owner of property located 1113 Bennett Street. The property encompasses Lot 7 of Block 227 of the Fraser Survey. The block is currently zoned commercial, a zone intended to accommodate a mix of commercial uses. However, the neighborhood actually consists of a mix of commercial and residential uses. In addition to the Dairy Queen in close proximity, a barber shop across the street, and other commercial properties in the area, there are 3 other residences beyond the applicants on Bennett Street. This is the applicant's house. He doesn't live there, but it is on Bennett Street. You can see the other houses, excuse me, to the left, to the south of their house. This is a zone map, basically showing a general idea of where the property is located. You can see it's in the commercial zone, the red zone. Again, the houses, there's, I believe, 4 there in a row. There's a barber shop almost directly across the street. And you can almost make out the Dairy Queen sign right about there. So it is definitely a mix of commercial and residential. With the adoption of the new Land Use and Zoning Code of 2010, a new zoning designation was created, the Mixed Use District. This classification is intended to accommodate a mix of small-scale commercial and residential uses and to provide a transition between commercial and surrounding residential neighborhoods. It is likely that this block will be included in that new zoning designation when the new maps are drawn. The applicant originally requested the zoning be changed to Residential B, but did not object to the new designation of mixed use. The main reason for the zone change request is that properties zoned commercial have a higher mortgage interest rate than those zoned residential. This makes it harder to buy, sell, or refinance the property, even though the actual use of the property is residential. Another hardship for property owners in this situation is that residential uses are considered non-conforming in a commercial zone. Non-conforming uses have a number of restrictions, including the inability to expand, extend, or enlarge structures by more than 25%, or to rebuild a residence that is destroyed by some calamity after 1 year. The new zone designation will eliminate those restrictions. The applicant contacted 28 property owners in the surrounding neighborhood by letter and personal visit. He received 1 call from a resident at 1412 Bennett Street who said he was in favor of the zone change. The Community Development Department also contacted 28 neighboring property owners. At the time this report was written, no replies or comments had been received. 1 phone call was received from Gina Patton of RE/MAX, who had seen the notice sign of the zone change and asked what zoning the property will be changed to. The Planning and Zoning Commission will apply and make relevant at minimum one of the following findings to the request at hand. The proposed amendment is in substantial compliance or not in substantial compliance with the town's comprehensive plan. The proposed amendment will not adversely affect the implementation of the goals and policies of the town's comprehensive plan, or it will adversely affect the implementation of the goals and policies of the town's comprehensive plan. 3, the proposed amendment is justified in order to correct a mistake in the town's comprehensive plan, an error in the assumptions about the property, surrounding uses, population forecast, rate of land consumption, or other factors. 4, the proposed amendment will not adversely impact the public health, safety, or general welfare, and will promote the original purposes of the Land Use Code, or it will adversely impact the public health, safety, or general welfare and will not promote the original purposes of the Land Use Code. The proposed amendment Number 5, the proposed amendment responds to changed conditions such as changes in assumptions on capital investments, road locations, population trends, land committed to development, density, use or further studies that have been completed since the adoption of the land use code, or does not respond to changed conditions. The proposed amendment is necessary in order to respond to state and/or federal legislation. Number 7, the proposed amendment provides additional flexibility in meeting the objectives of the land use code without lowering the standards of the land use code. Staff opinion: the Community Development Department has determined that the application is complete. It has been reviewed by town staff who have stated no difficulties with the zone change, and at least one of the 7 findings can be met, and no conditions are recommended.
Very good. Then the next order of business is the applicant's case. And Ms. Ward, if you will come forward, and you have been instructed about the 7 findings and are prepared to address at least one of them, right?
I have, and I am.
Very good. Please proceed.
First, I would like to thank you for allowing me this change in the agenda. And to the gentleman in the audience, I need to get home because I buried my mother this morning, and so I appreciate your allowing this to happen. The findings that are required, we find that this project meets is number 2, the proposed amendment will not adversely affect the implementation of the goals and policies of the town's comprehensive plan. Number 4, the proposed amendment will not adversely impact the public health, safety, or general welfare and will promote the original purposes of the land use code. Number 5, the proposed amendment responds to change conditions such as changes in assumptions on capital investment, road locations, population trends, land committed to development, density, use, or etc. And number 7, the proposed amendment provides additional flexibility in meeting the objectives of the land use code without lowering the standards of the land use code.
Would you like to tell us why the applicant is requesting this change?
Certainly will. Mr. Horcasitas inherited this property from his mother, and he has listed it for sale, but because of the zoning, if I remember correctly in the past, if a house in a commercial district burns down, they're not allowed to rebuild it as a home. It has to be commercial. So in order to sell it properly, we need to do this ahead of time before someone wants to buy the house, and then we have to go through the zoning procedure. There was an encroachment, and I believe you have the survey that shows there was. But the land to the south, the adjoining land, is owned by Mr. Horcasitas' aunt. And he has deeded that property to his aunt, and Mr. Miller has made another survey showing the altered tract A at 0.169 acres, and the tract B, which is the property to the south, at .095 acres. Therefore, we request your permission to have this zoning changed to mixed use in order to facilitate the sale of the property.
Thank you. Is there anything further you'd like to state?
Mr. Horcasitas was unable to come. He lives in Albuquerque, and the weather kept him from coming.
Very understandable.
Are there any questions that I might answer?
Do any commissioners have questions for Ms. Ward?
How long has it been a residence? How many years, do you know?
I don't have any idea.
For quite a while.
Quite a while. The house is an old house. It has been totally remodeled in probably 50 years anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any opposition witnesses to testify? I guess not, because none were sworn in. So I guess we are prepared to entertain a motion on this matter.
I move we approve the zoning request as submitted, and should I read each the findings?
The one that she's cited.
And that the following
read them by numbers.
Right, and that findings number 2, 4, 5, and 7 are relevant and will apply. And furthermore, there will be no conditions attached to this.
Thank you.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Sorry.
I would just like to offer that I had the pleasure of working with Luann and Peter Russell for what seemed like eternity, but which was only about 18 months in the Land Use Code Revision Task Force. And this new zoning of the mixed use was developed as a part of that revised task force efforts to address this very subject of allowing properties not to be subjected to these higher mortgage interest rates. So this is an example of our city government working. It's a good thing.
I wish they'd work a little faster on getting the maps done so that we don't have all these cases to adjudicate, but I totally agree. Any further discussion?
That's all I was going to say was that, I look forward to the day when we can consider a new zoning map, and I realize there are issues with the staff's time and just capacity to make these things happen, but I think it's a good thing and look forward to that sort of comprehensive redraw so that we can really put this into effect in an overall community-wide way.
And we note that Commissioner Seibel has joined the group. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passed. Okay, the next item on the agenda is CU 1103, a request for a conditional use permit to allow, I'm sorry. It's BA 1105, a request for a variance to allow a perimeter wall over 6 feet in height at a tract of land addressed as 1806 North Alabama Street, Silver City, New Mexico. The applicant is Robert Eagle. Okay, as before, all those wishing to testify on this matter, please come forward. The commission will act as the adjudicating body in this case, and I, chairperson, will be the presiding officer. And this case involves an application for variance. Have any members of the commission had any ex parte communication on this matter?
No, however, Madam Chair, I will be recusing myself from this. We are friends with the applicant, and I have property in the area. We received a letter, so.
Okay, very well. So noted. Okay, please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear.
I'm sorry, you have to state your name. I state your full name.
I, Jim Eagle,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that the testimony I am about to give
that the testimony I am about to give
will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth,
will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth,
on penalty of perjury.
on penalty of perjury.
Thank you. Okay, let's have the staff report, please.
I'm hoping that you'll let me sit here too.
Sure,
Thank you. Tonight, the variance is concerning a request by the applicant to build a wall, potentially greater than 6 feet high, on 3 sides of his property. The owner of the property is Maddie Eagle, and the representative is her husband, Robert Eagle. The property is located at 1806 Alabama. As you can see, it is directly across this Alabama Street from St. Mary's Retreat Center, and it's a fairly busy street, Alabama, that goes from Highway 180 out to Cottage Sands. The purpose for constructing the cinder block and stucco wall is to mitigate the noise level from traffic on Alabama Street that the applicant claims is disturbing their peace and quiet. He wishes to construct a wall around portions of 3 sides of the property, and as you can see, it will extend from, this is the south side, this is the north side. It will extend from about the back of his house on the south side and come up to the street, or to the front of the property, and there will be a wall on the street side and also on the north side. It will be within the setback areas on all 3 sides, but that is allowed by the land use code. The wall is already under construction. He intends to build the wall up to 6 feet and see if that mitigates the traffic noise problem. And he's asking for the variance in case it does not mitigate the problem. The land use code allows fences and walls to be constructed in setbacks and allows fences or walls 6 feet or less in height to encroach into a setback. And so he's meeting the land use code with the construction of the wall as it currently is. These are several photographs of the wall as it's being built, and this will also help the building inspector if he has to go in and look at the construction of the wall if it goes above 6 feet. Up to 6 feet of building permit is not required. Above 6 feet, it requires not only a variance but a building permit. So Mr. Eagle has done his homework in the engineering and construction of the wall, and he's putting in footers, and he has, you can see the rebar that he has for the footers, and he has done a fairly good job in planning out his fence for the case that it might need the variance and he might want to go greater than 6 feet. The fence is, like I said, under construction. It has reached quite a height in some areas. I wasn't able to get photos today. I wanted to bring you an updated photograph of the fence as it has been built. Today we were having some technical difficulties in just getting our presentations put together for computerization tonight, so I wasn't able to get to a photo of the new fence, or the fence as it is now. Mr. Eagle contacted 37 of the neighboring property owners and had no negative comments or concerns. And we also contacted those same 37 nearby property owners, and we had no comments at all from any of the neighbors. Well, yeah, we had no comments at all from any of the neighbors about the construction or the variance. The Planning and Zoning Commission, to approve a variance, it has to make the following findings. The hardship of which the applicant complains is one that is unique to the applicant rather than one suffered by the neighbors or the general public, and the hardship relates to the applicant's land or property, and the hardship was not created by the deliberate action of the applicant or by one under his control, and reasonable remedies are not presently available, and the granting of the variance is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan, and the granting of the variance is in harmony with the purposes and intent of the Land Use Code, and the granting of the variance will not be injurious to the neighborhood surrounding the property where the variance is proposed, and otherwise is not detrimental to the public welfare, and the variance will not result in the extension, expansion, or enlargement of a non-conforming structure in violation of Article 7, and will not authorize the initiation of a non-conforming use of land. The town staffs, the departments have all concurred that there is no problem with the variance if it's proposed or if it's approved, and the staff opinion is in its review of the application. The Community Development Department found the application to be complete. Town departments had no objections to the application, and no evidence of fact or public opinion would indicate the application could not meet the required findings, and no conditions were recommended.
Okay, we will begin with some questions for staff, and I have several. You just stated that there were no conditions recommended, but what about the engineering reservations about existing surface water drainage cannot be rerouted to neighboring property, and the wall must allow for existing drainage pathways? Shouldn't that be a condition?
That
And
would
the
not...
wall may have to be engineered because of height. And code enforcement said that you can't block the sidewalk, and that you only have to agree to continue maintenance of weeds on the street side of the wall. Those would all seem to be
The wall
concerns.
itself was going to be built without having to come to the Planning and Zoning Commission as a 6-foot wall.
As a
It needs no
6-foot wall.
permit, it needs no
Correct.
approval by any of the town departments for that. Once the wall gets a variance, then the wall will have to be engineered, and that's part of giving it a building permit, and the staff or the town engineer would have to review that permit. That's not a condition that would need to be imposed by
I see,
the
with the
Planning and Zoning
automatic-
Commission on the variance. That is a condition that would actually be a part of the building permit process itself. That's why I said that no conditions were required of the variance.
I see, that makes sense. The principal question, I think, is what is the proposed height of this wall if the variance is granted? I mean, is that at the owner's discretion? Could he put up a 10-foot wall if he wanted to? Well, you'll get your chance. Why isn't that stipulated?
It wasn't stipulated in the application,
I know that.
and I didn't see anywhere in the land use code where it says it can't be over a certain height.
I see.
That would be a condition that the Planning and Zoning Commission might want
Certainly
to
would
add
have
on
to be a
to.
condition. We don't want the Great Black Dragon flying on Alabama Street. Okay. Do other commissioners have questions for staff? Commissioner Pratt.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I did notice that the comments from the two staff members weren't put in there as conditions, but also the staff checklist that you provided in my packet at least didn't have the backside, so we couldn't even see their actual comments. So it's kind of rare that they even put any, so the one time that they did, it was missing on my copy, but
I don't have it.
That was
I
a clerical error, sorry, Dan.
I too am concerned about it being open-ended. In my experience, I have never seen a request that didn't have an actual number, that we were voting on, because we basically be approving something that, and it could be up to us, to come up with a number, but, it probably should come from the applicant. But, also, I'm wondering, about the clear site, when, Alabama's a busy street, and having that wall, is it going to be an obstruction when backing out of the driveway and seeing the traffic coming? I mean, I know that the fire marshal signed off on it, but was there any discussion about that? Because I remember, somebody wanting to build a carport, and it was, one of the conditions was that the sides be open, and that was on a less busy street than this was, because of the danger in backing out into that traffic and having some kind of obstruction there. And I know that Alabama is pretty busy, and it's probably scary to back out anyway there. So I'm just wondering if there, I know that everybody signed off on it, but if there was any specific discussion about the obstruction there.
There was no specific discussion about obstruction. There was, because it wasn't on the corner, there was no line of sight issue on the line of sight triangle. If you look at Alabama, I think 2 doors up, there's quite a bit of obstructions and bushes right along the sidewalk. There's other areas along the street that there are obstructions like that. So.
And I know that even if it's less than 6 feet, I mean, there's still going to be an obstruction there, but that stands out to me as, I don't know. I just was wondering if it came up and...
It did not come up, and we did talk with the police chief.
Okay. Yes.
So, maybe I should save this for a conversation with the applicant, I'm not sure, but obviously, in the staff opinion, it says that there's no evidence of facts or public opinion to indicate the application could not meet the required findings. I guess you could debate subjectively about several of these findings, but I'm particularly concerned by finding number 1, which is usually the sticky one. To me, any of the issues, the problems that they would have on this property with noise would be the exact same problems that any of their neighbors in this section of Alabama Street would have. And I don't see how we could make the argument that their situation is unique to them rather than just being a situation of living on a busy street and that's how it is. So I'm wondering why it says that you couldn't find any evidence of fact, because that seems pretty accurate.
I would expect that would be a question for the commission to concern themselves with.
Well, perhaps we should hear from the applicant and see if he can address some of these concerns.
Which would you like me to address first? Should we start with item number 1?
Yeah, what's your proposed height of the wall? You might start with that one.
Actually, the proposed height of the wall would be actually, if I should get into something about my property, which is unique to my property, the level of the street and the actual elevation of my home, which means the actual floor of my home is almost 36 inches below the level of the street. Okay? And on the very front side, the wall is actually going to be under 6 feet tall. And if my property level, if the house was at the same elevation as the street, a 6-foot wall would be adequate for where I wanted, which what I'm trying to do. So this wouldn't even be a problem. So I'm not saying that my property is unique, that I have a problem with the noise on the road. I know that everyone on Alabama has a problem with the noise on the road. But my being able to block out a 6-foot wall is unique to me, that I can't, as you travel down the side of the property and get to the level of the house, the level of the wall at 6 feet drops down below the level of the house. I don't know if you're following me all the way, but as you go back along the walls, as you can see on either side of the north and south side, the elevation of the land drops. So a 6-foot wall actually drops with it. And so what actually happens is the wall becomes no longer a 6-foot wall. I know it sounds kind of strange, but if you're there and you can see it, it's quite obvious that my house is at a certain elevation. The property adjacent to my house, the property line, there's an elevation drop away from my house also. And so as the wall comes down, if I keep it at 6 feet, the wall in effect drops below the level of the street when you're looking out the windows. And so I basically have diesel trucks and everybody who lives out on Cottage Sand going by at excessive speeds, I might add. And I'm trying to take care of some of that noise. And I also have a small child that I've been in fear of when he runs out the door. We're always so we're trying to contain that. But I think if my house was at the same level as the street, a 6-foot wall would block out most of the noise, or even less than a 6-foot wall. Like obviously on the front, I don't even need to go 6 feet. I think the wall is going to be maybe just above 5 feet on the very front side of the property. But you can see, as you can see from the drawing, that's going to be, I'm putting in a carport because I have no off-street parking. And so there's also an entrance, there's the entrance off to the right on the south side. There's another entrance just to the left of there that takes us straight into the front door of the house. So basically, and if you go to the very south side and you look at the driveway there, there's a little retaining wall there. That's barely going to be from the level of the driveway in the street. That's not going to be much more than 2 feet higher than the street level. So that when I park in there, I can see. And the other thing I've done is that on the very front side there on the street, I have set it back from the sidewalk so that my neighbors on my north side do have a sight line as they back out of their driveway. Which I did have a conversation with the owner of that property, and the people who live there are actually renters, and I discussed it with them in respect to them. And there's also some utilities there that I wanted to leave access, and I did the setback more after I spoke with the gas company. I did a setback more than the gas company recommend. They have a certain amount, and I actually set it back over a foot more than was recommended by the gas company. Now, basically, as far as the height of the wall, there's only going to be a few sections where it could go over 6 feet. I don't think there's anywhere where the wall will be more than 7.5 feet, but nowhere will it be over 8 feet. I don't think it's good. I mean, that would be the maximum, and I don't think it's ever going to be that high. So it's more like to get just so that the places where I needed to go a little bit over 6 feet to get the blocks and the noise is where I put it in for the variance. And we've been held back on the construction. I started just to get the 6 foot thing in, but we've been held back because of the weather. Some of the wall has been put in. Mostly the front wall right now is at about a height of about 3.5 feet, and it has blocked off a considerable amount of noise. I'm going to take it a little bit higher, but I've backfilled that front area as I filled it in. So I offset that front wall, and I'm backfilling it in. I'm trying to bring the level up to the street. So that entire area where the driveway is will be about street level. Of course, my house drops below that. As it drops below that level, it's going to mask a lot of noise. Just keeping it at 5.5 feet, it'll be plenty of mask. It's along the sides that I need the variance, so that in the places where I might have to build up the wall a little bit. I hope that sheds some light. And it is unique to my property because my property it's a Santa Rita home, and whenever it was put in, I have no idea. My wife bought it, and they built this. Probably there weren't any kind of code enforcements back in those days, but honestly, the house is way lower than it should be on the property, and I have some issues. And as far as dealing with the drainage issues, I haven't changed any of the elevations as far as drainage. As a matter of fact, I've improved them as I put in the wall. As far as my neighbor on the south side, there's been absolutely no change to their drainage of their house. They make a choice whether they put gutters on their house or not. But everything drains towards the rear. Everything in that neighborhood flows back towards the creek, which is 3 blocks behind that property. And so it is something that is unique. Although it seems like in that first sentence you would think is that the noise is just unique to me. No, it's not. I think it's a problem with Alabama that all the residents deal with. But as far as me being able to get rid of it with a 6 foot wall, on my property, it is unique that I can't do that with this particular situation. So that would address the first one. As far as the second one, or is there any other questions?
Yeah, you are aware that we have to find all 7. So you need to address each one of these findings and demonstrate why they can be met.
Well, is there any questions on that first one? As far as, it seems like the first one sort of answers the second one by just what I just explained. The hardship relates to the applicant's land or property. I think that it has to do with the way the land was surveyed and put together back whenever it was, I have no idea when that house was put there, but I would say at least 50 years ago.
So, are we just going to ask questions in the middle of this testimony?
No, I think he should finish his testimony and then we'll ask them.
Okay. Number 3, the hardship was not created by the deliberate action of the applicant. I mean, I certainly wasn't the person who made busy thoroughfare. I mean, it's grown over the years and it's getting worse. I know it's a situation that everybody's probably aware of. But as growth expands out on Cottage Sand and out on Bear Mountain and Ellis Mesa and all that stuff, it's going to continue. That road is not a very big street, and it handles a lot of traffic. Excessive amount of traffic for what it has, for what's going on out there. So, and I certainly am not the person who needs to do that. But if there was any way that I could remedy the traffic on Alabama to make it less, I would certainly love to do that. I wish there was something we could do to make a better way, because that is a residential neighborhood. There's a school there. My son attends the Montessori school. My my wife is pregnant. We have another child. We want to live there, but, it's just a neighborhood. For the granting of the variance is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. I'm not sure what the town's comprehensive plan is, so I can only assume that I'm definitely not trying to break any of the laws or plans of the city. This is something I'm trying to do, and as Mr. Coates had mentioned, it is within my right to build a 6-foot wall on my property without any kind of application for a variance. Number 5, the granting of the variance is in harmony with the purpose and intent of the land use code. I assume it is. The granting of variance will not be injurious to the neighborhood surrounding the property where the variance is proposed, and otherwise is not detrimental to the public welfare. And the other counselor had mentioned something about, she thought that there would be a sightline issue. I'm in the middle of a block, and I have thought about people backing out of their driveways. As far as my personally being able to get out of the way, traffic oncoming is coming from the south. So I would be more worried about. I have a pretty good sight line, and I think I've made a sufficient sight line for the person and the people living in the house next to me. And then, I guess I'm on to number 6. The variance will not result in an extension, expansion, or enlargement of a non-conforming structure in violation of Article 7, and will not authorize the initiation of non-conforming use of the land. And I certainly am not doing anything of that nature. I'm not trying to expand on anything that's against the codes or anything that's been going on with the city, as far as I know.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I hate to dwell on number 1, but I'm just curious, from my knowledge of that neighborhood, and I know it pretty well, and the pictures that were submitted along with this, I mean, you argued that this hardship is unique to you, but that slope away from Alabama is the same for at least everyone in that block, the way that things slope away. I mean, if anyone wanted to build a wall, they would face more or less the same problems you do, at least if their goal is to mitigate the sound from Alabama. And so, would you build on that a little bit for me, why it is that your property is unique?
Well, actually, I haven't shot the elevations of every property, but I did talk to the neighbors who own those properties on either side of my street, and I actually, in conjunction with building my wall, I had made an offer to, could we put something that would be less obtrusive on the front of the property, because a 5-foot wall, or definitely a wall less than 6 feet on the front of those properties would be sufficient to protect all our properties from the noise levels. But they didn't want to. I mean, they didn't want to participate, and that's their call. And the thing is that on either side of my house, the people who own those houses don't live in them. They're rental properties, so their concerns are different than. I mean, I live there. I'm there with my family. They don't care if the renters deal with the land noise. But I can't say for sure that the people living in those homes are not dealing with the same issue that I am. I do know that those homes are at different elevations than mine. And whether they're higher or lower, I think that, without getting in with a survey, I couldn't say. I think they're generally along the same elevation, especially the one on the south side. I think the one on the north side is a bit higher. And also the one just to the north of the home on the north side of my property, there is a wall there. And and their house is quite a bit lower than my house, but because of natural things that have already been, people put in walls, 6-foot wall, they've done different things to, I mean, I don't know what kind of noise situations every neighbor's dealt with. All I know is that no one had any kind of negative comments about what I was doing. And some of the neighbors even understood that, but, I mean, I could have, if my neighbors on either side of me would have been willing to make a wall that went straight across, it would have been 5 feet. That would have been adequate. I would have been fine with that. But my house is quite a bit closer to the road, and then I think as far as setbacks are in the city now, I don't know. But that is a very busy road, and I assume that when that house was put there, it wasn't that busy. So it must have not been a problem at that time. And different people have different ways of dealing with it. So, and I do need off-street parking. So actually, a lot of this came around needing off-street parking and having a level driveway with level with the road. And then while I was putting in the retaining wall to do that, I thought I would add a wall. But I don't think it's going to be much over, I mean, at the places that it may need to go over 6 feet, it's just going to be a couple of sections on the wall. And I don't think it's going to go that much higher. I know it's not going to go that much higher, but I definitely know it's not going to go higher than 8 feet. It would probably be 7 feet at the max, but I can't say for sure because I might get to 6 feet once the wall's complete and have like no problems, or at least abated it to a reasonable level, and I'll be ready to go. So
I guess your comments there kind of go to the root of my concern about this particular application, which is that all your neighbors have the same problem. You know, there's that old expression that good walls make good neighbors, and I'm not going to speak to whether that's true or not, but walls definitely don't make for a good neighborhood. And I could envision everyone coming to the same solution, and even under what's allowed under the land use code, the idea of like a continuous 6-foot wall along Alabama Street would make for a pretty poor environment. Might be nice inside the walls for the folks that live there, but in terms of the other folks in the neighborhood that have to use that street every day and trying to make a pleasant, walkable environment for the kids that attend Montessori school, for instance. I realize that you are trying to address a problem with the tools that are available to you, but it's a poor solution because it seems like really the way to deal with some of these problems are through a better streetscape, a better public environment, finding ways to calm that traffic, finding ways to quiet things through the use of vegetation, some other things that we could do as a community. And I would much rather see a solution like that would actually make a more pleasant street and cause some of the problems to be reduced, as opposed to start building walls which, while it fixes your problem, makes the problems worse for the rest of the community.
Well, can I make a comment on that? I have, for several years, have actually more than 3 times, probably 4 times, I've called the police department. I've gone physically to the police department to complain about speeding. They put a speed bump in, they put a stop sign in. It hasn't taken care of the situation. The noise level of diesel trucks and stuff, nobody's addressing that. That's been turned into a main thoroughfare. They're building stuff out there. How can I stop that? How can I make the city deal with a problem there that's going to cost tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, when I can spend a few $1,000s and deal with it on my own front and not create a huge havoc? I don't see how the town of Silver City can fix that problem, because is there any other way to get out of Cottage Sand? And I think that it's been on the table before. This is not a new issue. And if the city hasn't done anything about it, why would I not be able to do something on my own about it? And it's like, I know that if it had been dealt with before, when probably all of us were very small children, like a long time ago when it should have been dealt with, it would have been an easy solution back in those days when a property could have been appropriated to make a thoroughfare for the amount of traffic that could have been projected that could be going out on Cottage Sand. But it's just going to keep growing. And that street is not adequate to deal with that amount of traffic. And that speed bump hasn't really dealt with it, because as soon as the speed bump really doesn't work, and the people that do slow down, as soon as they go over it, they gun their engines right in front of my house. And I've complained about it, and I've gone to the city about it, not the councils, but as far as the public officials that I know to talk to, which would be the police, there's nothing that's being done about it. And they can't stop the speeders, and they stop people at stop sign for a stop sign, but people speed up and down the street all the time, and it hasn't been dealt with. So I'm tired of it.
Right.
And I've had this on my plate with my wife. You guys all know my wife. And we've been dealing with it for years, and we've been talking about this for 2 years, and we finally went for it because nothing's changing on that street. And as long as you guys, it's not you guys, but as long as the city keeps building out there, or allowing buildings out there, and it keeps growing out there, and people who live out there like to have big loud trucks, that street's it's not a residential street anymore, it's a main thoroughfare. So I would like to not have to spend the amount of money I'm throwing at this wall and have it dealt with in a different way, but I don't feel like there was any other way to deal with it. And I do have, I'm expecting a child soon, and I'm also in concern of the safety of my children. And I walk across that street, and people don't, I have a crosswalk right in front of my house, and people don't stop for me. So it's like, you know, I'm not an officer of the law, and I've actually chased people down and called 911 and tell the police, gave them, now I don't know what happened. But at this point, I'm kind of past that, you know. My son goes to school, there's children in that neighborhood, that street should not be a main thoroughfare street. But that's not the issue at hand, I don't want to get into that, that's not why I'm trying to do it, but you brought this up.
Right.
So, however you guys want to deal with it, if you want to not allow it, I can probably get by with a 6-foot wall. But I was a couple of places where I wanted it to go a little higher, because I think it'll help block out the traffic. Noise, I should say. But at this point, I understand your concerns, I'm concerned too. I like to be more neighborhoodly. As soon as you go back a couple of blocks, it's a lot quieter. But Alabama is a major street now, it's not just a nice little quiet residential street. So,
I'd appreciate it if we could go back to the picture of the wall design. Yes. Could you go up, could you approach that and show us exactly which portions of the wall you think will probably have to exceed 6 feet to meet your...
just along this area here, and possibly, right now, the wall drops off from this height. This height, actually, this wall is not going to be 6 feet. It's going to be below 6 feet tall, almost as far as from the street level. But when you get back to here, like, this wall drops, it comes down almost 2.5 feet to be at a 6-foot level back here because of the elevation. And then the street level is still here, so I'm looking out my windows in my living room, I'm looking straight out the traffic coming out of the road. So I just want to get up too high where I'm blocking the traffic and lights and stuff. Like I said, I think if everything was at normal height, then this drop off would happen at the 6-foot elevation of the wall, or less would be plenty for what I'm trying to do. I wouldn't go up on that.
That is the south wall and the north wall.
This is the north wall.
Okay.
And this is the front west wall, and it's not going to, I mean, it's going to be barely about 5 feet tall from the street level.
Okay.
And I have done a setback which is almost 4 feet from the sidewalk. And right now there is a small metal fence, but we can take that out. I've already talked to the public service company about raising the gas meter. And this will, we're planning on putting plants in here, like we'll put hollyhocks or whatever, and maybe kind of xeriscape a little bit so we don't have to do a lot of maintenance. But I also feel like it's going to make this a safer area for my children to play in and not worry about the traffic. And it's crazy standing on the street from 2 p.m. until 7 p.m. at night. It's just you can't even talk to people hardly. But, you know, I understand, you know, but like I said, these rental properties, and the person who bought this house, but the house just north of them, they built a wall in front of their place. So people have built big walls all along that street of different degrees. And Nick, I agree with you, that it would be a better, if there was a better way to deal with this as a neighborhood and as a city, I don't know what to do except put a bypass, but I don't have that kind of money. And I know that the city has looked at other ways to do a bypass, but what are we going to do, you know? And if people are going to keep building on it, there's a lot of vacant land out there. So, yeah, that would be the funny thing for me, the irony, it's like doing this, and then 2 years later, you guys have done a bypass, this becomes a residential street again, that would be great, but I don't foresee it in my lifetime that that's going to change from being a major thoroughfare to just back to a residential road. But is there any other questions that I can answer?
I had a question for staff, actually.
Could you return to the podium so you can be heard by the TV audience? Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Mine are for staff as well, so if anybody has any for him.
Should I, since I'm going, should I just go?
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I guess I do have one. Is there not a property further to the south that kind of does have some kind of vegetation in the front? Have you consulted with them, and does that help them at all mitigate the...
As a matter of fact, yes, I have spoken with them, and they have some bamboo there, and it does absolutely nothing for the traffic. The noise, I should say. And because they're on the corner, they have a little more difficulty, but they do have off-street parking, so they can turn off and get into their place. They don't have to park on the main. I mean, people used to park on the road, I sometimes do, but they've changed the traffic lines, the lines on the street, so that you can no longer park on the west side of Alabama. And you can still park on the residential side, but I think it's discouraged. It's kind of dangerous at times because there's a lot of traffic's crazy on the street. But we talked about it, and They said
It
that
helps visually, but not really with the...
there's nothing about the noise. I mean, the noise really, the biggest problem is the diesel trucks. A lot of people out on Carson have big trucks, and they've got header pipes, and it's pretty loud. You know.
Commissioner Lundy?
You have a right to build a 6-foot wall. And it seems that your primary concern is the north and south walls. Yes, sir. If there was a condition placed that no wall to the north or south could exceed the top of the windows on the north and south of the house, that would solve your problem, wouldn't it? Absolutely. So a height condition related to the top of your windows would solve your problem. Sure. Okay, thank you. I think actually in my house, that would be over 8 feet. So I'm more concerned with the leveled street, but that, if you want to make that the absolute height, that would be fine with me, because my windows are quite tall on my house. No, I'm talking about the north and south walls only. As I am too. Adjacent to the windows. That's exactly what I'm talking about. There are tall windows in that house. It's a Santa Rita house, but I would probably stay below that level. And as I mentioned to Mr. Coates, I mean, I'm hoping that 6 feet is plenty high. And if it goes, in a couple of places it goes a little bit over, I mean, I realize a lot of people just do stuff in this town without even asking. And out of respect to what's going on and trying to do the right thing, I've gone through this process because I do want to do the right thing, but I am also aware that once I got into the construction, that if there was a little bit of a problem with noise, or if I could win up another level of block on a couple of places that help alleviate the noise, I would like to be able to do that in this process.
Well, we certainly appreciate your trying right by the rules.
Thank you.
I think you may be seated unless your question is for Scott, right? Okay.
So, my question is, in all this, we've talked about the height of the wall being limited to 6 feet, and the elevation change that takes place between the street and the house. Where is that 6 feet measured from? Is that measured from the street side? Is that measured from the house side? Is that measured where the elevation was before?
It's measured from grade.
From grade.
Okay,
I think that's
if
an
your
average.
grade is like this, it's measured from here to here, or from here to here. It's 6 feet above the level of the ground at which the fence is built at.
If the ground sloped away, the wall would step down.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, using the wall that's on the Alabama street side, the side that faces the street, on the west side, on the street side of that wall, the ground level is at one level, and on the house side of the wall, it's at a different level. So where do you measure 6 feet from? This side of the wall or that side of the wall?
With
I think the land use code says an average.
An average.
I think, I recall that it's an average of the level on this side and the level
So
on
it's
this.
basically halfway between where...
I think so.
Yeah.
That's how it used to be.
I'm having a hard time.
It was my understanding that the grade was the average of the height on both one side of the wall and the other side of the wall. So it'd be the average of those two.
Right.
But I don't know if that changed though.
You know, at a 45-degree angle, you know, you're in a 6 foot or 8 foot or 8 inch block. Your difference would be maybe 4 inches at most. So I mean, you're talking not a big difference. If you're just talking one side of the wall to the other side, you're talking the average between those. Yeah.
Well, now I have a question for the applicant. I'm just curious, so Buddy, how much fill are you doing on the street side? Like, as you fill that in, what is that change in elevation that's happening there on the street side of that wall?
Can I go stand over and see if I can clarify what you're asking?
Yeah.
So the difference between
I can kind of see there, actually.
this would be the sidewalk.
Right.
The street side, and between this level,
Like, where you're in your front yard, say where those blocks are stacked, what will be on the inside of the wall, and what will be
this
on the...
is the area I'm bringing up.
Right. And how much are you bringing that up?
This is going to come up about 14 to 16 inches from the level on this side. On this side, it's like right now, the wall's at 6 feet, and it's about level with this, which is, I think, about a 3-foot or 3.5-foot piece of fencing. So at 6 feet on this side, it's just level with this, but this is going to get backfilled. And this is also being built as a retaining wall. It's being all backfilled with concrete and cell reinforced with rebar and stuff. But the actual elevation drop between here with the street and my house is almost 3 feet. The porch or the level of a porch of my house or the floor of my house. It almost drops 3 feet.
So Jim, do you understand what my question is now? As that gets filled in on the street side of the wall, the street side of the wall becomes higher. So I'm just questioning, will it then be 6 feet from where the new ground level is, or is it 6 feet from his front yard?
I would say, just without going into it in depth, it's from where the state ground starts. It's not from where you backfill in for a retaining wall.
I think the applicant answered it's on 6 feet on his side.
6 feet on his side.
On the house side.
Yes, ma'am. So I guess my primary concern in all this is the appearance from the street. And your primary concern is the elevation change on the north and the south, which I am less concerned with. Because what people do in between their house and their neighbor's house is between them and their neighbors. What they do between their house and the street is between them and the entire community, in my book.
Okay, so your concern is that that wall is going to be obtrusive to the neighborhood, or to the neighborhood? Is your concern, or is that the neighborhood's concern? Because I've inquired with everyone on my neighbors, and they don't have a problem with it.
Right, and the neighborhood obviously is our number one concern. But my concern is that everybody's got this problem, and I'm sure everyone in the neighborhood is thinking, how can I get this problem solved? And I'm just thinking 20 years down the road, as this gets worse, we've got a freeway-style sound barrier that runs for 7 blocks down one of the major streets in our town, and what sort of a neighborhood that builds.
I don't think that's, may I comment? I don't think that at this juncture, if the city wants to actually address the problem of the noise in Alabama, that's something that needs to be dealt with before you make that comment about what I'm doing, because that's the issue. Not me building a wall there. I'm building its cause and effect. And if the city wants to deal with the issue of the problem with the amount of traffic that goes down Alabama, I think that's how you're going to keep people from building walls like this.
And I think it needs to be noted that the property owner has the absolute right, without our consent, to build a 6-foot wall. And whether we add another foot on the wall or not, it's not going to change the visual impact that the wall would create, which is what we object to. I think that point needs to be made.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there...
I have a question for staff. I'm just curious what the actual street setback is there. I didn't see it in here.
I think it is 10 feet.
So 10 feet from the setback, he could build it 20 feet high, or as high as he wants to go. As long as it wasn't in the setback? Is it just that it's in the setback?
Never build a fence over 6 feet without engineering and a building permit.
Well, right, you have to get a building permit, but without a variance, he could go as high as he wanted if it was 10 feet from the property line.
Yes, I think you're correct.
Okay, it's in the setback.
Because it's in the setback,
It's limited to 6 feet.
And my issue is, we have this set of codes, we have this land use code, it specifies setbacks. What is the point of having this uniform setback if everyone is behind a 6-foot wall and you can't tell how far the house is from the street anyway? It seems to run contrary to a number of community planning goals that we're trying to achieve here. And I really do understand his issue. I understand it better than a lot of folks because I live on Bullard Street and I know what it is to have traffic noise 24/7. But I chose to live there and I kind of knew when I got into the situation what I was getting into, and there are other reasons that made it worthwhile for me to live there and ignore the best I can the traffic noise and the other issues that come with the location I chose to live in. So that's my problem in a nutshell. But further than that, I'm kind of sorry that Peter's not here because I have a feeling he would fight me about this, and I have a feeling you guys probably won't. we talk about this long-range planning and this advice we're supposed to offer the town council and that sort of thing. I mean, it seems like Alabama Street is a place in our town that's really crying out for some innovative solutions to traffic calming and noise abatement. And it really seems like it's not being brought forward. And it seems like this might be an opportunity for the Planning and Zoning Commission to get involved because we have some pretty good expertise here. Obviously not tonight, obviously not as a solution, regardless of what happens in Robbie's case. It seems like this could be an opportunity for us to get involved and come up with some ideas and put some things forward in the long run. But I'm just putting that out there.
I think that that's a good suggestion. I think we ought to consider it perhaps under our community forum section of our agenda. But for now, are there any other questions to staff or applicant? Okay. Then let's entertain a motion on this one.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve variance request VA 11-05, request for a variance to allow perimeter wall over 6 feet in height and attractive land address as 1806 North Alabama Street, with the following conditions: that the wall that is constructed be no more than 8 feet on the north and south side of the property, and that the height be no more than the allowed 6 feet on the Alabama Street or the west frontage of the property.
I second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion of the motion? I must say you surprised me.
I surprised myself, because I couldn't even wait for bear with this thing.
I think we need a roll call vote on this one.
I will have some discussion, and I agree with the change. I think that was necessary, and the primary concern is that front wall, then that'll help with that situation. I do think that the hardship kind of has to be looked at in more of a, I don't know, I believe there is a hardship there that is unique to the property. He has small children. He is an owner that lives on the property. There is the change in grade. I think he's proven that, and I think it's a very difficult finding to prove, and I feel comfortable granting this request with what the applicant has presented.
As usual, I agree with your reasoning. I think it's very sound.
I should probably amend my motion incidentally to say that I believe it meets findings 1 through 7, and I included those by reference in my motion.
You did. Okay, are we ready to vote on this? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Clements?
I'm recused.
Commissioner Coast?
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy,
Yes.
Commissioner Peralt?
Yes.
Commissioner Seibel?
Aye.
The vote passes. You got your variance. We will be recommending that you get your variance to the town council, and we will have to find a word on that. Is that correct? No, we have to find a word on that. Right. Okay. Now we'll move on to CU 11-03, and this is a request for conditional use permit to allow an antenna to be placed on the existing wireless telecommunications towers at the Southwest Concrete and Paving Facility on Hilltop Road, Silver City, New Mexico, and the applicant is Verizon Wireless. Okay. Have any commissioners had any ex parte communication about this matter?
No.
Okay. Then all those who wish to testify in this matter, please come forward and be sworn in. You will not be required to speak if you are sworn in, but no one will be allowed to testify in this matter without being sworn in. Please repeat after me. I state your full name.
I, Reginald Michael Destry,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that the testimony I am about to give
that the testimony I am about to give
will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth,
will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth,
on penalty of perjury.
on penalty of perjury.
Thank you. Okay, we will have the staff report, please.
If I can find it, I'll read it. For some reason, I don't have a copy of the staff report in my packet. I give them.
One about.
Thank you. Okay, this is conditional use number 1103, a request for a conditional use permit to allow telecommunications antennas to be attached to an existing pole in a rural zone. Telecommunication facilities are allowed in rural zones only with a conditional use permit according to the Land Use Code Table 3.2. The location is 1955 Hilltop Road, Silver City, Grant County, New Mexico. The applicant is Reg Destry for Verizon Wireless. Verizon Wireless wishes to install 9 antennas to an existing pole at the site of the Southwest Concrete and Paving at 19 Hilltop Road, Silver City. There's the pole right there, as it is today. The purpose is to improve Verizon's coverage and capacity in Silver City and to allow for future improvements in technology. 3 antennas will be concealed within the pole and 6 will be mounted on the outside. The area around the pole is predominantly undeveloped land except for Southwest Concrete and Paving and 2 houses/businesses across Hilltop Road. There is the proposed outside mounted antennas. There's Southwest Concrete and Paving and the houses across the road. The applicant contacted 4 property owners in the surrounding neighborhood by letter and received no responses at the time of the staff report. The Community Development Department also contacted 3 property owners, the 4th being the town of Silver City, and also received no responses. The Planning and Zoning Commission will apply and make relevant the following findings to the request at hand. Number 1, it will not endanger the public health or safety. Number 2, will not injure the value of adjoining or nearby properties. Number 3, will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. And number 4, will be in conformity with the town's comprehensive plan or other plans officially adopted by the town. Staff opinion, the Community Development Department has determined that the application is complete. It has been reviewed by town staff who have stated no difficulties, and all 4 required findings can be met. No conditions are recommended.
Thank you. Has the applicant been informed about the need to demonstrate these 4 findings in your testimony? Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am, Ms. Chairman.
Very good. Please proceed.
Commissioners, thank you for considering our request for a conditional use permit for co-location on the existing cell tower on Hilltop Road behind the building here. About a year ago, I received the request to find a new location in town. Basically, Verizon has a site on the far west side of town and up on the mountain just north of town. And as people use their phones more and use data products more, there is a need to increase the amount of channels that are available to them and utilize the ones that we have as effectively as possible. To do that, we need this new site in town, and it will allow for offload of the existing sites, which will lead to better reliability. You'll be able to make calls more often and also have better capacity for data products being used. The original location was up by the high school along Swan, hence our site name is NM5 Swan. The engineer wanted to be 120 to 160 feet with a new structure. I told him that obviously it wasn't possible. We spoke and started working with staff. We ended up moving the ring south to this site and looking to do a co-location as it's more in line with the code. And we really feel this does meet the 4 requirements for a conditional use permit. It will not endanger the public health and safety. This site will operate within federal, state, and local guidelines. And in fact, they often help to improve safety as people nowadays use their cell phones to call when they see a fire, when they slide off the road from a snowstorm, an ice storm, or many other reasons. It will not injure the value of the adjoining or nearby properties. This is and has been for quite some time a materials yard used by Southwest Concrete, and the cell site has been there, and this will not impact or increase the intensity of the use that's there right now. And in fact, by co-locating, we're avoiding doing another tower, which probably helps decrease the overall impact from a cellular site. Number 3, this will be in the area in which it's located. Again, this has been for quite some time a materials yard. It is adjacent to a commercial area. And moving on to number 4, it will be in conformity with the town's comprehensive plan. This is never going to be residential zoning here. I mean, this is adjacent to commercial. It's historic commercial use, and this use does not intensify that. And in fact, again, by not building a new tower, falls in line with the zoning code and the preference for co-location. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
There's 6 antennas outside, 3 antennas inside.
Yes.
How can an antenna work if it's inside?
The white part of the top 30 feet of this pole is actually fiberglass reinforced plastic. So it's RF friendly. It can't be behind steel, but when you're behind attenuated plastic, it can get through there without much degradation of the signal.
Okay, thank you.
I was wondering if you actually were looking for a much higher tower, why you chose to place your package well down the hill rather than at the top.
Well, there are several reasons. First of all, the elevation in this area is much higher than by the high school. That alone allowed us to come down. There are already 2 levels of antennas inside of that white radome. One of them is at about 94 feet and one's at about 84 feet. Due to interference, we can't be right in front of or behind those antennas that other companies have. So we need to have usually about 10 feet of separation from the center of our antenna to the center of their antenna. In this case, going down onto the actual steel allows for a better mount for the exterior antennas. It's not a very good idea structurally to go above, because that radome is not any sort of a structural element. There's a center pole inside that radome, but to put those flush mount antennas above would not work.
Are there other questions for the applicant?
This is kind of a goofy question, but the kind of cool thing about that cell tower is that it doubles as a flagpole sometimes. Are they still going to be able to fly the big giant flag from it once they put your new towers on the outside?
The flag can go on there. As you've probably seen, those flags tend to get tattered very quickly. It may well get caught on the antennas too. I think at this point, I've still not seen that thing with a flag on it. I think that was the original idea, but as with many flag sites, it runs into the problem of the flag becoming tattered quite quickly, especially there. It gets a lot of wind.
Well, its main purpose is a cell tower, not a flagpole.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion.
It was cool, but you couldn't tell that it was a cell tower before, which was kind of the nifty thing about
It
it.
contributed to the stealth.
to give commissioners an opportunity to question staff. Do you have any questions for staff? I think you may sit down. Thank you very much.
When the new map is done, I noticed that it says that these are going to be in rural areas. Oh, I know the new map is going to be coming out, and this is in a rural zone, kind of surrounded by commercial. Are there going to be any changes in that area when the new map comes in?
Not that I know of. I don't know of anything anticipated about that.
I had a couple of questions, too. I wondered how this original tower was ever approved at a height of 101 feet, since the maximum height by the land use code is 50 feet.
How it was originally approved, I have no
Was it approved as a conditional use because of need for service?
I was on staff, yes,
Okay.
yes,
You remember that?
yes.
And I was also wondering if it's visible from either residential A or B, because there would be a requirement under the new land use code that it be screened or camouflaged in some way if it were visible from residential areas according to the land use code.
It's a flagpole. That's how it's camouflaged.
I see. So all telecommunications facilities, support structures shall be landscaped, screened, and/or painted to minimize their visibility. Yes, this is Land Use Code 3.3 J, B, and G, and that's on page 52.
I'm sorry, 3.3 what?
3.3, paragraph J, B and G. And that's on page 52 of my land use code. I guess my real question is, maybe this is new language that was introduced since this tower was constructed. And so my question is, does that mean that this tower in its uncamouflaged, unscreened, unpainted state is grandfathered in? Or if we grant a conditional use permit, does that then put this tower under the requirements that are stated in this part of the land use code?
Madam Chair, I should point out that the way this tower is designed with the radome and everything, it's designed to be camouflaged. As it exists now, it is camouflaged because unless you know that's a cell tower, it doesn't have anything to indicate that it is. It looks like a really thick, oddly proportioned flagpole, which is what they were going for. We're going to uncamouflage it by putting cell antennas on the exterior of it, and that's a question that I think we might need to at least address in passing.
Well, that's my question to staff. Does the granting of a conditional use permit put this tower, which was in compliance as it was allowed, and will, as Commissioner Sidewell has pointed out, might be put out of compliance by the addition of the exterior units?
Maybe they could make an invisible one. I don't know.
But have you seen where
I see what you're saying, yes. I don't know how to answer that.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
can I ask a question of the applicant?
certainly.
So I'm just wondering, the pole at the section where these are going to go
It's 26 inches wide.
is 26 inches wide, and it's, right now, I think it's, I believe it's galvanized, right? It's galvanized steel?
It is. The bottom 70 feet is galvanized steel. There's a lower portion that is sleeve, and then the top 30 feet is fiberglass reinforced plastic.
So can those new towers go on, either be painted silver to blend in with that pole?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly order them gray, paint them gray. If you'd like, we can paint that radome, we can color the radome gray as well, so that there's a more uniform appearance to the pole.
That might be pretty nifty, and I think that
I
would
think that might
definitely
help.
fulfill the...
I agree.
Right.
Did you see the photo simulation with
I
the
did.
panels on there?
I'm just trying to think of ways we could meet the code, and by having them paint it, painting is one of the things that is asked
Paint
for.
it to match the radome, or paint it to match the...
If we painted the antennas and the radome to match the pole, then we would be not only camouflaging the new antennas, but we'd also be making the whole tower itself more uniform and less obtrusive. So I would think that that would be
That might be a good way
a
to
good
phrase
condition, right.
the motion. Yeah, my concern was simply that if we're granting a new conditional use permit, then we have to apply the standards of the new land use code.
Right.
Does staff have a comment on that supposition of mine? Okay, then let's proceed on the assumption that I might be right. Okay, are there any further comments?
Well, I must say I'm rather surprised that the entire community's not in here and, pressuring us on this. I think this is something that, I know for myself and many of my peers, the very issue that they're trying to fix here, it's part of my livelihood, and I think for a lot of us that rely on cellular, not only telecommunications, but data communications also. I'd like to comment that I feel this is something that, that the community really needs. It's just unfortunate that with our topography that there's not a better, a more suitable location. And just thinking, I can't think of any, just even picture a location in my head that would be suitable for this.
Right, this is probably the best we have to offer.
Yeah.
I would just like to comment on the original application too. It was to the town's benefit for it to go on this site as well, because the town does have the land use code, and we were able to put conditions on it by requiring a conditional use permit. And Verizon definitely had the option of going to the county just outside the town limits, which from this location isn't very far, down Mountain View Road or wherever, and build it at any height. They didn't have any standards in the county, and not make it stealth, and and we would have zero say on it. And so it would, they really worked with us to make stealth as possible, and it does say a lot that I never had heard any complaints from the community at all about that thing going up. I think a lot of people actually thought it was a flagpole, So I think this, I was concerned too when I saw at first, that, oh my gosh, they're going to add antennas to it, but I think that with the effort you're going to make, and I'm glad you saw that. I didn't see that, but that'll help stay compliant, and we appreciate you working with us too.
Yes, I think your company is to be commended on the sensitive way they've approached this matter. Do you have anything further you would like to add?
Nope.
Thank you, Mr. Destry.
Thanks.
Any further comments by
Well, I was going to
Commissioner?
say I'm in agreement with Nick that it should all be, uniform.
Okay, so does someone want to give me a motion to that effect?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I
Commissioner.
will make a motion to approve conditional use permit CU-1103. This is a conditional use permit to allow an antenna to be placed on an existing wireless telecommunications tower at the Southwest Concrete and Paving Facility on Hilltop Road. Applicant Verizon Wireless, meeting the following findings. 1, will not only not endanger the public health or safety, it will improve public safety by improving telecommunications services in the town. Number 2, will not injure the value of adjoining or nearby properties. It's essentially putting new towers on an existing, new antennas on an existing tower. Number 3, will be in harmony with the area in which it's located, finding 2. And finding 4, will be in conformity with the town's comprehensive plan or other plans officially adopted by the town. And again, we thank you for your willingness to work with the town and consider the aesthetics of our community in your location of antennas.
You want to add your
With the
condition?
condition that the new antennas as well as the white radome be painted a gray color to blend as best as is possible with the galvanized tower below.
I'll second that motion.
No. Sorry, this is
That's okay.
something I should have
It's
asked
time for
earlier,
discussion.
but does Verizon have the ability to have the radome changed, as they're only going to be installing, I guess it's, co-location of antennas, but Verizon doesn't actually own the tower. So, I mean,
Verizon does not own the tower,
Right,
no,
so
and
can-
Verizon doesn't control that radome itself. I mean, we'd be able to work with SBA Towers, who owns it, to paint it.
Okay.
But when it comes to replacing it, then we put up temporary towers for the
So then
carriers.
it'll be at the mercy of SBA to
Yeah.
put you in compliance with
And
them.
I expect the situation will be something along the lines of they'll let you paint it if you pay to have it painted, right?
Bingo.
Okay.
I would just like to add my comment that I don't see any reason I would paint it because that's a subjective thing. Looking at it being white is more attractive than something dismally gray in my mind. So I think that's a very subjective condition, if you're talking about aesthetics.
So I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
I put the condition on it only because A, it adds uniformity, and B, because we kind of have to be able to say that we're screening and or painting it in some way to be in compliance with the land use code, so that gives us an opportunity to do that, which is the reason I put it in my motion. But I see your point, for sure.
Okay, is there further discussion on this motion? Would you call the roll, please?
I'm sorry.
Luann, would you call the roll? Yeah.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Clemens? Yes. Commissioner Coast? Commissioner Lundy,
Yes.
Commissioner Peralta? Yes. Commissioner Seibel?
Aye.
The motion passes. The conditional use permit is granted. Okay, now we're going to move on to our final hearing of the evening, and that is ZC 1104. This is a request for a map amendment zone change from commercial to mixed-use district. The location is 1400 North Corbin Street, Silver City, Grant County, New Mexico, and the applicant is Jeff Reese. Like the other case similar to this that we heard this evening, it will be necessary to prove at least one of the 7 findings, and the applicant has the burden of that testimony. So anyone wishing to speak in this matter, please come forward and be sworn in. The Planning and Zoning Commission will be the hearing board, and I, chairperson, will be the presiding officer. Has there been any ex parte communication on this matter among any of the commissioners and any members of the community?
I will be recusing myself again. Both times tonight, but I'm good friends with the applicant.
Fine. Then, please state after me. I state your full name. Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that the testimony I am about to give
that the testimony I'm about to give
will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth,
will be the whole truth
The whole truth and
and nothing but the truth,
on penalty of perjury.
on penalty of perjury.
Thank you. Could we hear the staff report, please?
Project number ZC 1104. This is a request for a map amendment zone change from commercial to mixed-use district. The location is 1400 North Corbin Street, Silver City, Grant County, New Mexico. The applicant is Jeff Reese, owner. The applicant is the owner of property located at 1400 North Corbin Street. The property encompasses Lot 2 of Block 268 of the Fraser Survey. The block is currently zoned commercial, a zone intended to accommodate a mix of commercial uses. However, the neighborhood actually consists of a mix of commercial and residential uses, with 2 other residences across Corbin from the applicant's house. With the adoption of the new Land Use and Zoning Code of 2010, a new zoning designation was created, the Mixed Use District. This classification is intended to accommodate a mix of small-scale commercial and residential uses and to provide a transition between commercial and surrounding residential neighborhoods. It is likely that this block will be included in that new zoning designation when the new maps are drawn. The main reason for this zone change request is that properties zoned commercial have a higher mortgage interest rate than those zoned residential. This makes it harder to buy, sell, or refinance the property, even though the actual use of the property is residential. Another hardship for property owners in this situation is that the residential uses are considered non-conforming in a commercial zone. Non-conforming uses have a number of restrictions, including the inability to expand, extend, or enlarge structures by more than 25%, or to rebuild a residence that is destroyed by some calamity after 1 year. The new zone designation will eliminate those restrictions. The applicant originally requested the zoning be changed to residential B, but did not object to the new designation of mixed use. The code enforcement, police, public works, utilities, meters, and fire departments have reviewed the application and the file and expressed no concerns. The applicant contacted 35 property owners in the surrounding neighborhood by letter and personal visit. He received no negative comments, only support. The Community Development Department also contacted 35 neighboring property owners. At the time this report was written, only 1 reply had been received. Mr. Barry Gray of 1412 Bennett Street came to the Community Development Office to see if he could add his property to the zone change application. He was informed that it was too late to combine his property with Mr. Reese's, but he could apply for the zone change on his own behalf. The Planning and Zoning Commission will apply and make relevant at minimum 1 of the following findings to the request at hand. The proposed amendment is in substantial compliance or not in substantial compliance with the town's comprehensive plan. 2, the proposed amendment will not adversely affect the implementation of the goals and policies of the town's comprehensive plan, or it will adversely affect the implementation of the goals and policies of the town's comprehensive plan. 3, the proposed amendment is justified in order to correct a mistake in the town's comprehensive plan, an error in the assumptions about the property, surrounding uses, population forecasts, rate of land consumption, or other factors. The proposed amendment will not adversely impact the public health, safety, or general welfare and will promote the original purpose of the Land Use Code, or it will adversely impact the public health, safety, or general welfare and will not promote the original purposes of the Land Use Code. The proposed amendment responds to changed conditions, such as changes in assumptions on capital investments, road locations, population trends, land committed to development, density, use, or further studies that have been completed since adoption of the Land Use Code, or does not respond to changed conditions. The proposed amendment is necessary in order to respond to state and or federal legislation. Number 7, the proposed amendment provides additional flexibility in meeting the objectives of this Land Use Code without lowering the standards of the Land Use Code. Staff opinion, the Community Development Department has determined that the application is correct, complete, has been reviewed by town staff who have stated no difficulties, and at least 1 of the 7 findings can be met. No conditions are recommended.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions for staff on this matter? Would the applicant please come forward and make your case? And be aware you have been instructed that you must prove at least 1 of the 7 findings for us to grant this request.
Yes, ma'am, I have reviewed this document, and I found that it meets the requirements of Article 2, 4, 5, and 7. Since you have a copy and I have a sore throat, I'm hoping that I don't have to...
Could you give us an example? Just pick 1 of them, whichever one you're comfortable with.
Certainly.
It meets the finding.
The Article 2, the proposed amendment will not adversely affect the implementation of the goals and policies of the town's comprehensive plan. And currently, it's my understanding that the comprehensive plan will eventually change that area into mixed use. And it is a good neighborhood for mixed use zoning. I currently have another house in that area that we changed the zoning on about 3 or 4 years ago, and at that point, the subject of mixed use had just come up. That house was changed to residential B, and it's a good use for that area.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. Do any commissioners have questions for Mr. Reese? Is there anything further you'd like to add?
No, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being so patient and waiting through our long meeting. You may sit down now. Okay, let's entertain a motion on this.
I would like to make a motion that we approve ZC 11-4, a request for a map amendment zone change from commercial to mixed use for a tract of land address of 1400 North Corbin Street, Silver City, New Mexico. Without any conditions and with the finding that the proposed amendment will not adversely affect the implementation of the goals and policies of the town's comprehensive plan.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Didn't hear the motion. Okay. He hears through walls. Any discussion? Okay, I think we can do it. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion is granted, with Commissioner Clements abstaining. Okay, we have no new business tonight, thank goodness. And the community forum has been delayed until next January, but if you could put into some kind of a recommendation, what you were talking about, us taking on a study of Alabama Street, how that might be either presented or explored in a community forum, I think that would be an excellent idea.
Okay, well, I mean, I think that would be a conversation probably that ought to be had, maybe not in the meeting, but a conversation that some of us, and I'd maybe willing to take the lead, could have with staff on ways that we could approach that. And I don't know if there would be money to work with some consultants on something like that, or maybe there would be just some brainstorming that could happen among the commission and the staff as to, and not just the planning staff necessarily, but also, you know, potentially people from streets and public works that might have some ideas and some input into the process as well. But it might be where we could take some leadership and bring something forward that, you know, in future years the town could pursue or plan funding for.
Does the town have a traffic engineer?
Traffic engineer, I think most of the engineering is done by Engineers, Inc. Through Public Works.
So if we wanted to have a conversation about what the traffic engineer or the people who fill that function for the town have to say about the situation on Alabama Street at a future forum, that might be a way to launch the discussion. Would that be possible to invite whoever you think would be most appropriate as our town traffic specialist?
I don't know that there's a particular traffic specialist with Engineers, Inc., but I know that they have done a traffic study of Alabama Street not too far in the recent past, which will be coming before the commission in a not too distant future. So
I see.
So it seems like the timing could be appropriate to have this conversation.
yes.
And another impact analysis was done with the Branding Iron subdivision as well. So I mean, that's the subdivision that
Right where Alabama turns into Cottage Sand. At the curve, you have Branding Iron Trail, Charlois.
we had a lot of public
Perfect.
input about the traffic impact there on Alabama for that one, and then I'm sure in this upcoming request, and so yeah, I think it is appropriate, an appropriate time.
And I'm just thinking along the lines of, and when Robbie was here, he mentioned the situation, they only allow parking on one side of the street now. And I understand that from in terms of traffic volume and that sort of thing, but, it's decisions like that that we make in a well-meaning way that, by only having parking on one side of the street, you're increasing the visual width of the street so that people tend to drive faster, which is exactly the behavior that we're trying to discourage. So whether it's bringing back parking or maybe by a landscape buffer, finding ways to visually narrow that street so that people drive slower would seem to address some of the things that we're talking about here. And it's not going to solve all the problems, and it's not going to be a bypass, but it could solve some of the problems, and it'd be a heck of a lot cheaper than a bypass, and it might make a nicer neighborhood to boot. So that it seems like a good thing that maybe we could go forward and study if, staff could support us in that. And that's the part I don't know about, is if anybody has the time or interest or inclination to even provide guidance. I mean, I would think some of the commissioners could maybe even take a leadership role in working with people, but if we're going to talk to engineers, somebody would have to say, yeah, we'll pay for some time there to let them talk to you. So I don't know what those considerations are like on the town's end.
I would certainly take it upon myself to bring it to the department head, who couldn't be with us tonight. He's in the middle of a very large plan for the community. It also fits well with a plan that we're already working on for pedestrian and bicyclist use. And Alabama is a major corridor that the city is considering as needing to do something for pedestrians and bicyclists already.
And that is the topic for our January community forum, if I'm not mistaken. So that might be a good way to lead us into that discussion. Do you happen to know, Mr. Coates, how soon that issue is going to be brought?
The pedestrian bicycle plan?
The Alabama
the January
street
meeting.
study.
The January meeting.
January.
Yes.
Okay.
So would it be all right, Madam Chair, with the rest of the commission? I mean, A, is there anyone else that would be interested in working with me on this? And B, I mean, is it the will of the commission that we go this direction? That's my question. I mean, I don't want to go around wasting people's time if this is not something that we're interested in looking into. But if it's something the commission's interested in, I'd be happy to take the lead on it.
I'd certainly be glad to work with you on that. I think it is an important issue, and I hope this is one that the community will get really involved in.
I would also be very happy to be involved in it.
So with that heads up to the community that January is the month, and the first Tuesday of the month will be that commission meeting. Please come out if you're interested in this topic, and you'll have an opportunity to participate in the discussion. Any other commissioners want to volunteer on that, or can we leave it in their capable hands?
But I think it's a very important issue.
Good.
And, yeah.
Do we have any reports from staff?
No.
Yes.
Oh.
First off, I'd like to thank each of you for the close scrutiny you give these applications. Some of the questions that are asked, the thought that's put into it, it's really important, and it helps me as somebody who's trying to present you the information, a greater depth of what I need to do. And I appreciate your comments and your critiques of the staff reports. Regarding the zone changes that you've mentioned, wanting to get that map change, it's a little bit more difficult to call it just the map change from the perspective of the work that needs to go into it, because we have to look at each of the areas that might be considered for one of those major multi-use or historic district commercial, or and then plot out each of the parcels and make sure that we contact each of the property owners, contact
Oh, wow.
every one of them with every 300 feet from each of those property owners, and do it as an application, as though it were us making the application to you rather than each of those individuals. It's also going to be requiring public meetings to explain to those residents of the properties that might get a change if they're zoning, what it really means. Why are we doing this? So that's part of the holdup, and it's a bigger process than just asking David to redraw the map. So I appreciate your patience on that.
Jim, I'm sorry, on that note, yeah, I know that, when we had a lot, bigger fire danger, I had asked, whether or not, properties that have these non-conforming issues were going to be given any kind of priority. I came up with that, list of questions concerning them, and I know we never, as far as the community meetings, we never, had a meeting with that, but I'm just curious, has anything gone forward as far as setting up these public meetings, especially in these areas that have so many of these non-conforming uses? I mean, or is that just something that just hasn't...
We haven't been able to get to it yet. And most of the areas that we're talking about are not out in the fire danger there. They're not in the WUI. They're in the urban.
Right.
And so that's where the commercial will change to multi-use, where the historic district will change to commercial rather than residential. But you're right, we got away from that particular community forum that we were going to address the non-conforming uses. If you want to add that back in at some point, we'll certainly address that.
That's fine.
Your questions were great, because it really made us start thinking about those.
That's fine. I just didn't know in general, setting up any of the community meetings in any area, if, even one had been...
We haven't done any community meetings about those zonings, because we're still, we've got a pedestrian bicycle plan that we're working on, also a big water plan for the county, or the mining district in Silver City. There's several big projects that are going on. The zoning has been kind of put on a back burner.
I'm sorry. I just feel that there was such an urgency to get a new land use code, and especially to get these new zoning designations. We have quite a few of these requests, especially in certain neighborhoods, coming forward. And, I know that there was a real push to get the land use code passed, but, now it just seems like there's a complete stall in actually applying those zoning categories. And, it's just unfortunate to hear that they were created, but, that nothing has gone forward as far as applying those, except for an individual basis, which is what we were doing before. So I had hoped that by creating those new zoning designations, we could do it, widespread, and wouldn't have to burden people. Because I notice every time there's one of these applications, people in the neighborhood are like, I want to do that, and it just seems, especially in certain neighborhoods, that get the community meeting done and get it applied. But
right.
I know you guys are busy.
It might actually work to our benefit that we put it off a little bit, just because people will start understanding it with the few seeds that have been planted, like tonight.
True.
But that's hindsight planning. So,
would it be, I don't know, unrealistic or overly difficult? I mean, we always have the reluctance to spot zone. And so I'm sort of wondering, going forward, maybe if, now that there's been some interest generated, as people come and they want their individual property rezoned, can we start pushing them to see if they can get some of their neighbors on board, so that we're not just doing individual properties? Because as it turns out with this one we heard tonight, we know we would have had at least another property owner that would have gotten on board if it had been put out there in that manner. I mean, would that maybe be a way to start chipping away at that load without putting a lot of additional burden on the staff?
That's a good idea. We can certainly ask people to do that.
Right, we send out a letter saying, this zone change is being considered it anyway, we could say if you are interested in joining the...
Right.
It's a good idea. It's been done in the past where two different people express interest and you just fill in the blank properties. I mean, it takes some time because sometimes the property owners are out of town and you don't really want to, you know, zone two that aren't even adjacent to each other, so you want to, you know, fill it in. But yeah, it's been done and that would be a good thing.
I think that's a very good idea also.
I have a follow-up question then on that. Like in both of these, it said these areas are likely to become the mixed use. Is there some downside to us allowing a person to go to the mixed use from commercial if it ends up not being a neighborhood that ends up being rezoned that way? In other words, we're kind of assuming in some ways, oh, well, this neighborhood's going to be rezoned that way anyway, but what if people come in here and we end up doing 5, 6 houses in some neighborhood and then it turns out that it doesn't get changed?
The applicants that have come in, such as tonight, they are in the neighborhood that was basically designated for the mixed use. If they had been in a different neighborhood, they found that we wouldn't have recommended the mixed use change, the change to the mixed use. Like when we had a couple of the historic district properties coming in, we asked them, wouldn't they just as soon do it through the new zoning rather than just changing it to residential? Because that was what the neighborhood would probably be going towards anyway.
I really think the mixed-use permits are the most critical because it's such a significant financial hardship to people who are trying to sell their properties or even want to, you know, protect themselves in case they decide they need to sell. And in this market economy, it's just so difficult to get financing, and that only puts up additional barriers. So I really think if there's anything you can do to expedite that part of the map change, it would certainly be beneficial to the community.
And it seems like we're granting enough of them that we're running the risk of, I mean, it seems like almost you might as well just apply the zone and then wait for the pushback for people who don't want to do it, because we're applying so many of them. It's almost like, how can we really reverse that? And I think that's where her question was coming from, you know, what if there is pushback and what if people don't want it? And we've already granted all these. Before we keep going forward and granting them, maybe just present the widespread change, you know. I don't know.
Jim, you weren't here during the time, but Zane was and Luann was when we did spend about 18 months revising the land use code. That was almost a horrific experience in terms of the length of time it took to get the work done. In my lifetime, I've learned that things get done that are talked about. If you don't, you know, when you talk about something, then it gets done. If you don't talk about it, it doesn't get done. And if you don't bring a sense of urgency to getting something done, it never will get done. I think we need to bring a sense of urgency to some of this because too long of a time has transpired, from my perspective, between the adoption of the revised land use code and the mapping to put that in effect. And if we drag our feet willingly or unwillingly about getting that job done, and it doesn't get talked about, and it doesn't get done, things change. And by the time we do get the mapping done, things may have changed, and then, well, you know, the decisions we made over here, by the time we drag on, we get a map made, and it's over here, something's changed, and now the map's in conformance with what we did over here, but it's not in conformance with what has changed between here and here. So I believe it's a mistake not to bring a sense of urgency to get this aspect of the land use code revision task force work accomplished. And the longer we wait to do it, the more opportunity there will be for other changes to occur faster than we can get things lined up. And
I don't disagree with you in principle, but I think we have to be also mindful of the pressures of a lot of very demanding projects that have been placed on a very small and very hardworking staff. And I think we have to also defer to their professional judgment about setting priorities within their department, because they're probably aware of things that don't come under the purview of planning and zoning, that are duties that they must also address.
Well, this was a priority set by them.
I
And we
almost
tried-
felt that it was rushed at the time. Sometimes I wanted to slow it down, like, well, let's have more review, and it was like, no, we gotta get it done, and then it's done, and
then
we're
nothing.
not even applying the zoning.
So, we operate under a priority, and all of a sudden, that priority's gone away. And I think that's a mistake. That's what I'm saying.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
My question would be, we're here to help, and maybe that help is us actually physically coming down and, having meetings and doing that sort of thing. Maybe how we help is we advocate with the town and with the council and with the mayor. If the department is understaffed and there aren't enough people to get done the things that the community gets done, maybe our place is to advocate for more staffing, more hours for the community development department. And I think those are the sort of things we need to know, maybe not necessarily in a commission meeting, but let us help, because I think that's why we're here.
I guess I would have to defer then to the department head. I have no idea what the budget is, do you? But thank you for your offer. As long as you don't add more hours.
Is there any further discussion tonight? Then let's have a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair? I know it's been a long meeting, but before we go, we didn't really do the reports from commission part.
I'm sorry,
And,
do you have a report for us?
well, I went to that, I said last time I was going to go to that Department of Transportation workshop.
Oh, yes?
And I promised I would report, so I feel like I should report.
Please report.
It was good. It was long. There was lots of good information. Jim was there as well. Probably the most encouraging thing about it was that there were folks from a lot of communities in southwest New Mexico there, from the various municipalities and counties. But there were a lot of folks in design and engineering from the transportation department in the state that were there along with us, listening to some of these things. And so I hope that as we work on some projects as a community, sort of implementing some of these progressive solutions, that we'll have more buy-in from, the district engineer's office, since we were all in there together having the same conversation at the same table. So that, to me, was the best part of it. One other concept that was introduced to me that I was really excited about was the concept of a WUNRF.
Of what?
A WUNRF. I know, that was my reaction, too. I will. I have to look at my phone, though, because I can't do it without looking at it. A WUNRF is WOONERF, which is a Dutch word. Apparently that's where they came up with the concept. But it's a street, and there's some pictures here, but essentially it's a street that doesn't have sidewalks, that has no differentiation between uses. Like, from building to building, it's just one surface. And you can walk anywhere, you can ride a bike anywhere, you can park anywhere, you can drive anywhere, but it's a super slow-speed environment because anything can happen, so you have to be really cautious. And obviously this wouldn't be a solution for, like, Alabama Street that has a lot of traffic. But the thing that immediately came to mind is that, the town recently reclassified 11th Street there next to the new HMS clinic that's going to be built so they can turn it into a parking area. I thought that block would be a really good opportunity to implement some of those ideas there, because that's really the kind of environment that you're going for between the new HMS building, the old HMS building, and all that parking. And so it could be a cool place to experiment in an environment where there's not a lot of traffic. But I was putting that out there from my personal perspective.
So quite a bit of Europe is a WUNRF.
WUNRF. I know. And it's really contrary to the way that we think about traffic engineering certainly in this country, everything has rules and signs, and, there's a bike lane, and there's parking, and there's street, and there's sidewalk, and all these things are separated. The idea of putting it all together is almost what we have downtown, except there's a very obvious separation between sidewalk and street. But as far as all the other uses, everything just kind of happens, and it happens kind of slowly, and it makes for certainly an interesting environment, and I think a really active and involving place to be a pedestrian.
How do you handle rain?
Well, I imagine it's probably, they must have some sort of grade to the thing, but I've only had the
The reason our streets downtown are so high is because of the grid.
Right, erosion, yeah, and I've been, and we couldn't ever do it downtown for a number of reasons, one of the big ones being historical, but in a place where we aren't dealing with those sorts of constraints, and that's why, again, the whole 11th Street thing kind of came to mind. That's sort of a blank canvas, particularly with all the work that's going on there. Might be a cool place to try something out, see how it works in our community. So,
I'm really sorry, but if you don't mind, I just was wondering, and forgive me because I wasn't here at the last meeting. I don't know if you did give an update, but what happened with the Penny Park thing? Did they approve a concept, or are they stalling and getting more input, or?
Everyone looks at me.
Well, both of you, I know that, you were going to attend the meeting.
The town has had a reluctance to talk about it in a council meeting for whatever reason. I know there have been some delays with the letting of the contract for the demolition and the clearance of the old park. There have been some issues there. So everything's just been kind of on hold until there's been an opportunity to discuss it in public. I know that there are a lot of people that are interested, but there really hasn't been an opportunity for them to be heard yet. And speaking personally as one of those people, it's been really frustrating. And so I'm looking forward to the opportunity to have that conversation, and I hope people don't get worn down and give up, because it's still important to the community, even though, it's kind of drug on. I find it particularly interesting because one of the arguments for not being able to have a public process and a new design process for the park was that we needed to get the park rebuilt as soon as possible, and now here we've gone for months and there hasn't been any movement on it. It seems contrary to some of the things that were said.
I did have a meeting with the mayor on the topic, and I came away from that meeting very encouraged, because for one thing, the concepts as we saw them in those boards are not the full concept. They were never intended to be interpreted as such. They were just the sort of collections of play equipment and how they might be placed in a park environment. But it was always intended that there would be additional environmental design in regards to landscaping, water features, pathways, multi-age use. The mayor was very aware of all the concerns that we expressed in the letters that we sent, and shares those concerns and feels that there's a lot of resonance in the community for things like additional shade structures and features in the park to attract adults as well as children, and some of the security issues that have been raised. And he sees the loss of the amphitheater. He also thinks that Silver City needs a performance space, but he doesn't think Penny Park is the right place for it because of the parking issue, that there are better places, and he said there's even a concept to do something at La Capilla to create an outdoor performance area where there's a lot more room for it and better parking options. He sees Penny Park in the context of the whole park system within the community. So I came away from that meeting feeling much more positive about the kinds of thinking that was going on there. So, but Nick is right, they haven't discussed it in public yet, and they're still waiting to get all that vote removed. Okay, are there any other reports from the commission?
I would also point out, I know I've done a lot of talking tonight, that it's council election season, and there are 3 council seats that are up for election and the mayor. And I know that 2 of the 3 council seats, the councilors have announced their intention to run again, but the council representing District 2, Jamie Thompson, has basically let it be known that he's not interested in running for re-election, which means there will be an open seat there, which is a tremendous opportunity. And a lot of the things we talked about tonight, that Alabama Street in particular, are squarely in District 2. And we can make all the plans and recommendations we want, but without good, vigorous representation on the council from someone representing that district and looking out for those interests, the implementation will be a problem. So if this is something that people are concerned about, and you live in District 2, I would urge you to think about running. It's a great opportunity. District 2 is the district that I had the pleasure to represent on the council for a term, and it's a great district, and it can be even better if you step up and help it be that way. So that's my public service announcement for the night.
Okay. Thank you. If there's no further comment from commission, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. This meeting is adjourned.